sea territorial conflict. So these things carries the two concepts. First one is water conflict, and another one is territorial water conflict. So when we talk about the water conflicts, then the conflict involves with the rivers in many cases. So water conflicts defines the conflict over the water resources, water systems, water control, and management. So anything that are involved with this problem and that is categorized under the water conflict. And the other one is territorial waters conflict. And this conflict involves with the area of the sea immediately adjacent to the shores of the state and subject to the territorial jurisdiction of the state. So this is called a territorial sea. But the rivers are different. Sometimes rivers are running and flows across the different countries, but there is differently demarcated from the borderline. But the territorial water is same with the borderline. So there are two different cases. So in the world, there are 10 most violent water conflicts are recognized today. One of the most well-known dispute over the water is in the Nile River. And the other one is about the water shortages and the public discontent in Yemen. And there is a serious conflict running over in around the Euphrates and Tigris River and Turkey, Syria, Iraq. These three countries are involved seriously, and sometimes it leads to the casualties. And the other one is the transboundary water dispute between the Afghanistan and Iran, and Afghanistan and Iran shares a border, and the river runs through the both of countries. So even though the Afghanistan and Iran makes a very sometimes cooperative diplomatic relations, but there are some conflicting points between two countries over the water. And there is a famous one you may hear about that is there are several dam projects going on. And that these projects are not bargained much and discussed much between the China and other Southeast Asian countries. So Mekong River conflict is one of the famous one in Asia. And there is another water conflict in India, and in Somalia also the drought and the water conflict is also going on. And you can see the problem of the water privatization in Bolivia. So these are the 10 most violent water conflicts, but except for this, there are also other conflicts that are going on. So we have time limit, so I will bring several key cases to understand how to understand water conflict. So this is one of the famous one over the Nile River. So Nile flows through and across the many other countries, and almost 11 African countries are involved in the Nile conflict. And because more than 400 million people are living around Nile, so how to build a dam and how to keep the water reserves and how to manage the water resource system, and who is leading country to govern or mediating the water conflict is a major issue in Northern Africa and Middle, Central Africa. So you can see another map here that how Nile flows, and these three countries are in the major conflict, Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan. So when Ethiopia built the dam, then the other countries like Sudan and Egypt were seriously, affected. So all these diplomatic conflicts are still going on, and these countries held a series of round talks and bilateral and trilateral dialogues. And sometimes this issue is going on to the UN to have the international mediator. still this conflict are going on, and many people are having a difficult life around this case. The other famous one is conflict over the Euphrates and Tigris, and you can see the map here. Syria, Iraq, and Turkey are the major countries that are involved in this water conflict. So you can see the map here that not all areas around the Euphrates and Tigris are controlled by these three countries. The reason this water conflict is difficult to be resolved is that the non-state actors are also involved here. So you can see the red point that the city is under the ISIS control, and that there are some different cities under the government control. So if the area that are having either of Euphrates or Tigris River are under the control of the ISIS, and then it is more difficult to have a kind of cooperative solution over this area. So the other one, which I already mentioned, is Mekong River conflict. You can see the map here, that how the river flows from the China through the Myanmar and the other countries in Southeast Asia. So Mekong River is really a big river, and like Nile, the many people are living around this area. So every country want to have a bigger share, and the world want to have a tight control over these water resources. However, it is very difficult to manage the situation. You can see the graph here, picture here. On the right side, you can see the Mekong mainstream dams, and you can see how Chinese government tried to build the dams as many as possible. The upstream of the Mekong River is from the China. The river is originated from the China, and China built around 10 dams. And the rest of countries that is like Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, they are also trying to build a dam to keep the water resources more stable. But it is very hard to say that all these countries had a happy moment to resolve the issue. The major conflicting point is between the China and the rest of the countries. And the left side, you can see the graphic here, that how these countries like Laos, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia are heavily depending on this Mekong River. Yes. So when we talk about the water conflict and the international, the conflict, it is generally regarded as a part of the international system and international conflict. But water conflict can be happened within the country too, but in the minor level. So this is the map of South Korea. You can see that on the right side, on the right bottom side, there is a Nakdong River. This is one of the famous river in South Korea, and it flows from the North Gyeongsang province, and it flows toward the Busan. So North Gyeongsang province and South Gyeongsang province and the cities like Gumi, Daegu, Busan, Jinju are all affected, and all need to have water from the Nakdong River. So many of these cities are conflicting each other to keep the water safe, and there are also, if this water conflict is emerged within the country, then also this issue brings with the tax system, like when these cities levy the tax and get the money from the tax collection, then which city need to spend more money to keep this Nakdong River clean, and which city is having a major control over this water reserve is the issue between the major cities. And in this case, a major mediator would be the central government, but still issues are evolving, and with the change of the climate, and so that these issues are also going on, and the many issues like this are also going on in many other countries. So now let's move to the territorial sea and international and regional dispute. So unlike water conflict, there is another conflict called territorial sea conflict. So as we already know, the territory is composed with the sea, air, and land. And territorial sea, which is interchangeably used as a territorial water, is defined by the 1982 UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. So this means that a belt of the coastal waters extending at the most 12 nautical miles, which is approximately 22 kilometers from the seashore, uh, will be acknowledged as a country's territorial water. So that there are conflicts over the territorial water that includes a conflict over the jurisdiction and administration of the maritime features like reefs, rocks, and islands, and the territorial water. So there are differences between the water conflict and the territorial water conflict, you can see. And the territorial water conflict is negotiated and bargained or discussed by the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea here. So you can see the graphic here. This shows how to understand the territorial sea and the other zones extended from the territorial sea. So UN conventions on the law of the sea defines the water like this. So there is a land, and from the baseline of the seashore, from the baseline, that 12 nautical mile, that this area is acknowledged as a territorial sea, which is 22 kilometers from the baseline. And from that, 24 nautical miles is recognized as a continuous zone. So contiguous zone, which is written here, like a state may exercise control necessary to prevent infringement of its customs, fiscal, immigration, or sanitary laws. So a country can have an exclusive right to manage the territorial sea, but a country can exercise its power to manage the water 24 nautical miles from each territorial sea. And the other important concept to understand is the exclusive economic zone. So exclusive economic zone, you can see the important point here that it extended from the territorial sea. It does not extend from the baseline, but it is extended from the territorial sea, and it is recognized maximum toward the 200 nautical miles. So many countries try to have an exclusive economic zone as much as possible to exercise sovereign right for exploring and exploiting maritime resources, and also preserving the maritime environment. So after the exclusive economic zone, there is high sea, which is called as international water. So other, the ships and frigate, they can just sail. The next one, you can see the other example, like if there is, archipelago, and if the baseline is demarcated from this archipelago, then the territorial sea and the contiguous zone is extended from this part. So actually, when we talk about the um, territorial water conflict, which will be discussed by the speakers today when we talk about the South China Sea and the other issues, then this is very important to understand about the territorial sea concept and contiguous zone extended from the territorial sea, and the exclusive economic zone also started from the territorial sea. So I will just briefly talk about the East China exclusive economic zone dispute, because this will be also discussed by the other speakers later. But if you see the East China Sea exclusive economic zone dispute, all these countries surrounding this East China Sea are involved. Like there are dispute between the China, South Korea, and the China, Japan, and also between the China and Taiwan. So the red line shown here is a disputed area between the China and Japan. So red line is just argued by the China that Beijing argues that it's part of the Chinese territory. And Japan argues differently with the blue line, and you can see the South Korea demarcated with the white line. So this is the more simple way to understand how East China Sea conflict is going on. So South Korea argues with a blue line, and China argues with the red line, and Japan argues with the green line, and Taiwan argues with yellow line. So this is how all these countries argues about the air defense identification zone. But more than that, actually, when we talk about the overview of the territorial dispute over the sea, then you may need to see the entire world map again. So how the world map has been shown with the concept of the important oceans. So you need to know about the Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean, and that the Atlantic Ocean and Arctic Ocean and Antarctica. So territorial waters of the Pacific Ocean, for example, that there are many different small islands in the Indo-Pacific region, and this graphic shows about the Pacific Ocean, and then every country has this much of the territorial waters. So in case of Australia, Australia enjoys quite a lot of freedom to demarcate its territorial water line, but the other countries may have a different situation. Like already mentioned, Japan, South Korea, and China dispute over their territorial line. And apart from the Pacific Ocean, this is a map of the Indo-Pacific, which we already discussed in the first class. This Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean are big oceans, but in the small areas are also named in different way. You can see the South China Sea and the Bay of Bengal. So water, ocean, and the maritime dispute, all these concepts are actually very important to understand the dynamics of the region and the dynamics of the, between the states. So around, when we talk about the, region, then you can see the map of Asia that is based on the landline. But when we talk about the Indo-Pacific region, also countries can be bound into the different category. So, for example, if there is any studies on the democratic level in Asia, that